CPI comes in a teensy-weensy bit above expectations. The markets sit in a sort of no man's land in anticipation of the next move. But right now, an absolutely massive breakout hinges on one thing, and the breakout target is much different than you might expect. With one of the most powerful EMA crosses in history now flashing on these long-term charts, something huge is on the way. And the actor who played Wolverine in the Marvel Avenger movies just announced that he's getting onboarded into the Bitcoin Lightning Network once and for all. Today we received the newest inflation report, the CPI, and it came back a little hot. And in fact, we're still getting data about this, but so far the markets have had a very distinct reaction, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. But there are multiple things I want to get into, and one of the very first things that I want to jump into are a few quotes from the Fed's Harker here. So first off, saying, I do not know yet what the FOMC will do at this upcoming meeting in terms of the basis point hike. Does that mean that we are going to raise 25 basis points or potentially worst case 50, right? I personally think that more than likely it will be 25. But again, there's some very big things I want to point out here. His next quote, today's inflation report shows that inflation is potentially not moving down quickly, or inflation is not moving down as quickly, although there are mixed quotes here from this meeting, and the Fed is not done yet, but we are likely close. But I do want to highlight this. This is a quote from exactly 1 year ago, February 14th, 2022, from the ECB, is that inflation is expected to fall below 2% in 2023, according to January consensus forecasts. The inflation outlook in the United States is even more uncertain, though. And this was last year. And basically, this, even though this is the ECB, I want to take your take your memories back to a year ago when the Fed, first of all, was like over 8 months late to raising interest rates, which if they would have acted earlier, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now. Not to even mention if they wouldn't have printed free money like that as well, we wouldn't be in this position as badly. Obviously, their monetary policy handling has been awful since the beginning of mankind. But the two big mistakes were, one, printing all that money, and then two, not realizing the obvious, which myself and basically everybody that I follow on Twitter, on YouTube, everywhere, everyone was aware that inflation was probably climbing through the roof. And it was. And the Fed did not act on this, right? You have to remember, if you weren't around back then, if you weren't paying attention, I'll tell you what happened. They didn't start raising rates until like 6, 7, 8 months after it was already obvious that they probably should be doing something. So they were wrong about it. Okay, remember when they said inflation would be transitory? They were wrong about that. They were wrong about everything regarding inflation. So with that being said, I do think it's important to note that basically everything that the Fed says, you probably have a better idea if it's true or not. The person watching this video is probably going to end up being more accurate with the predictions of how inflation is going to get tamed than the Fed, okay? They have a pretty bad track record of understanding monetary policy. So with that being said, if you see negative remarks about inflation, CPI, everything coming back today, put very little value into it because by tomorrow it could have changed. Their opinion could have changed completely. Overall, year over year, inflation, I believe, has come down. We did have a very small, minuscule increase, and I believe it was so minuscule, or I believe it was an increase basically because of also delayed housing statistics having to do with the housing market. Regardless, whatever the reason is, the market is not so far pricing it in as any sort of doomsday event. In fact, the markets are up a little bit after this miss, right? The very first miss of the last 4 months with CPI. So another thing I want to highlight here before we continue is that the Gunnar EMA cross has finally happened on Bitcoin. Similar things happened back in 2015 and 2019, which signaled the start of new bull runs, according to Mustache Crypto Prof on Twitter. Buying in the black semicircle has always proven to be very profitable in the past, he states here. And right now, we're in a very similar position. Okay, so take that for what you will. But guys, as well, we have a massive pattern showing up on this chart. And I just simply cannot believe that more people are not talking about it. Now, granted, this is a smaller time frame. This has only been forming for about the last 12 days, nearly 2 weeks. But again, those kind of patterns can have pretty strong bustage levels. And the level that we're kind of roughly estimating that if we have a positive breakout of this, it could basically put us back to a retest of the highs that we set at the very beginning of February, right around slightly under 25,000, not quite 25,000. So like the low 24,000s. We could have a retest of that level. And if we were able to breach that, guys, you already know how big that gets. So for one, if we look on this chart, you can see if we saw that retest again around this level, that would put us to basically a retest of even back all the way in August of 2022. Because right now we kind of have some sort of double top type pattern that has been set. And if we're able to have a quick move over the next few weeks or even sooner in the next couple of days above to kind of invalidate that double top-ish type scenario, then that's obviously preferred. Not to mention as well that it would be the highest that Bitcoin has been since we collapsed below 30K really concretely for the first time since the beginning of the bull market. Okay, we came all the way down to like the $29,000 level back in the summer of 2021, and then also in the summer of 2022. However, the difference was in the summer of 2022, we did not bounce. In fact, we giga-dumped. We giga-dumped big time. A giga-dump unlike anything we've seen since the last giga dump. And so I think that's absolutely worth noting. So if we're able to have any sort of positive momentum over the next couple of days specifically, this could get very bullish. It absolutely does depend also on the stock market, which it is in a very interesting position. Again, I still maintain the position we could have this back test down to these levels below 4K on the SPX. So we would not be getting a massive Bitcoin breakout if that happened in the very short term. But as well, we are looking potentially for the scenario of a DXY breakdown or at least a retest of these levels after we've been trading sideways here at a very critical resistance, which you can see clearly the DXY has had trouble getting above. Will we break above it? Because honestly, the DXY should break up here. And if it cannot, it just shows complete pitiful price action, just complete weakness. That I mean, if you're shorting Bitcoin, you absolutely want to see this break out to the upside right now, immediately. And as well, before we continue with the charts, Bitcoin number of addresses with a non-zero balance just hit a new all-time high. And this is actually unique, not necessarily because of peer-to-peer monetary transfers, according to this Glassnode data and article here on Cointelegraph, but it's actually because of a surge of short-term uptick in Bitcoin usage network as of late, bringing a lot of new active users with non-zero Bitcoin balance to the network. Ordinals are the primary source of this, which instead of carrying a large payload of coin volume, is instead carrying a larger payload of data and new active users. So again, I mean, that's just a healthy metric amidst everything we're seeing in these markets. But overall, if you look at this chart as well, every one of these lines represents the days we get the new CPI data. And very often what you see is giga dumps basically over the past year, shortly before or after, or literally the day of the CPI prints. This is, going back to the beginning of 2022, January. And for most of the history, it was obviously giga dumps because we've just been dumping in a bear market. However, we saw the very last CPI we got, this weekly candle, was very big. Now, will we be repeating something like that? Potentially, could we be repeating a move, a candle of similar size? Because we ran for a couple of weeks after the last CPI. What are we going to do for the next couple of weeks because of this CPI? If we run anywhere similar, even pretty much half as much as we did the last time, then absolutely we will shatter that double top, which you can also see on this chart here with this, and potentially even retest 30K, which would be monumental. But in the short term, I think things are a little bit less decisive here. Overall, CPI today was pretty much what was expected, because everything I've been reading is that CPI was going to come in a little hot. If you guys do your channel, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on those ghost notifications to never miss these absolutely time-sensitive alerts. As well, BITGET just released a new updated copy trading feature tool on their website. And if you sign up to BITGET using my link below, you can trade alongside, pick these people, whoever you want, trade alongside on spot as well with less risk. And and additionally, using my link below, 0 trading fees for spot trading and the biggest deposit bonuses and even welcome bonuses. Without any further ado, that's it for me.